I don't know. I have no reason to. I don't know what happens in training, Terry. Yeah, but I think they've had a bust up over something completely different. And it's got nothing to do with training. Yeah, I think that personally, Jadon Sancho's fed up of sitting on the bench, getting the odd sub appearance here. He's then started this season. Cool, he had some starts last season, whatever. But he's then started in pre-season as false nine. He then sees you go and buy a striker. Cool, that's no drama. But now he's seeing Antony play every single week. Yeah, so I think he's kicked off about it and said, well, hang on a minute, you told me like I'm going to get games here, and now he's playing this shit every week. Right, and we mentioned this, me and Rance, a minute ago. Yeah, Danny Rose has done it on an all or nothing with Jose Mourinho. What do you think Sancho's scared of Ten Hag? Because Danny Rose weren't scared of going in Jose's office and saying, well, they're all crap, why aren't you playing me? And then you expect me to come on, yeah, and play for 20 minutes or start one game and then you drop me. Like, I mean, come on, this happens all the time in football clubs. Like, we see bust-ups. Last season, Lacazette and Cedric were punching each other up on the training ground.
Right.
Like, this stuff happens. I don't think he's been poor in training. You know, I just think that he's maybe in his head thought that he was going to get a lot more game time because of what the managers told him. Yeah, and then he sees Antony doing next to nothing every single week, and he's had enough. Yeah, so then Ten Hag's disciplined him and said, right, you're out the squad. Yeah, and now it's opened a can of worms. But the thing is, the way it's been done is right on top of international break. So now the squad are not going to be together. There's not going to be any problems in the dressing room. Everyone's gone off to their national teams and blah, blah, blah. And then when everyone comes back, it's all maybe died down by them because now the Antony thing or something else. And maybe, oh, okay, well, let's just get on with it. Yeah, and we know that all the journalists that work for Man United indirectly or directly are all going to be putting out different stories along the way to get over this and Antony story. Do you know what I'm saying? I personally think he was told he was getting more game time, or he was going to get a lot more minutes on the pitch, like, and it was going to be above Antony. Do your thing, get out on there, and then he's seeing Antony doing crap, and he's just gone, nah, bollocks to this. You did this to me last season. Yeah, well, and he's got an argument. He's got an argument to sit there and say, "Well, I only got game time when I came back after my 3 months in the mountains when Antony got injured." Yeah, now I'm still here.
So what about starting? What about starting the first 9 games last season?
If it started in the first 9 games and then disappeared for 3 months.
Okay,
so maybe there was an issue there, something different. Yeah. This is all subjective. We don't know, Terry, unless we're there every day.
Well, but you sound more.
Let me give you the prime example, and then I'll
go on.
Yeah,
go on.
This Antony story that's just come out. Yeah, we're all guessing as well. Has he done it? Hasn't he done it? Well, it's the same with this. It was the same with the Greenwood. Has he done it? Hasn't he done it? When there's more information put out there, then we can have a definitive yay or nay. But right now, we're all guessing.
So, but you sound, in terms of what you just said a minute ago, though, about you think so. What I've heard you just say, and I want to make sure I've heard you right now, because at the beginning you were kind of saying he's got a track record of this, Sancho, and he may have done this, and the manager could have gone about it differently. What you've now sort of said is actually you don't believe this is a training issue or a discipline issue. You think this is Sancho calling the manager out for promising him game time, not giving it to him and giving it to Antony, and he's right in doing that. And instead of being honest about it, Ten Hag, he's lied and threw the player under the bus by lying and saying that he ain't training properly.
Oh, so I'm saying I think, which means it's an opinion.
Yeah, you think that's what he's done. You think that's what he's
definitely 100% got previous. He got fined for it. And somebody in the chat said, oh, but he was 18 at Dortmund. And you're still an adult. You're still playing for a big club. You're still... And when Ten Hag's talking about their standards at Man United, we have a certain standard to achieve, he's chatting absolute waffle there. Because your whole team got spanked 7-0. And the very next game, they started again. So there is no standards, is there, on performance? Yeah, because if the performance drops below a certain standard, Jadon Sancho is not allowed in the team. But when the performance dropped to 7-0, they all started again. So he's contradicting himself in his own statement.
Let me just stop you there, but he isn't. He spoke about performances in training and the way people conduct themselves in training. He didn't mention games. So again, we can't be conflating what happens in a football match and what happens in training, because that's taking it away from...
We get more information on it.
Yeah, so I understand that. I understand that, but what you can't do is bring up an element of the game of football that he didn't mention. He only mentioned training, and there's a standard that needs to be met around training.
Did he actually use the word training?
Yes, Ten Hag did. Well, surely before you have an opinion on this circumstance, you'd have listened to what he said.
No, I've seen bits doing the rounds. I didn't listen to it. I don't get Sky Sports here, Terry. Yeah, but I've seen the snippets doing the rounds. Yeah, so either way, even if it is in training, so there's a certain standard in training. Yeah, but then there's a totally different standard on the pitch that can allow you to get banged 7-0 and you can all start again the next week.
Well, I can give you an example here of what that could be. Just an example, okay? So there is a train of thought of we got battered. We're going to play against Real. In the league game, by the way, there was changes. A game against Real Betis, which we smashed them 4-1, by the way. There's an element of, I know the confidence is low. I'm going to put you guys back into a game at home that we should win to try and get your confidence levels back up, to make you feel better.
No accountability.
Hang on. Let me just finish my point. I'll let you. So that I'm giving you an example of why they could be different. I'm not saying right or wrong, just why they could be different. So it could be a case of, because when we started that same 11, I said before it happened in the build-up, I want to see the same 11 start again. And my reasoning was I want them to go out there and play well, win, score, and almost try and forget it and blow it out of their minds for the rest of the season. Training issues and standards could be turning up late, because we know the manager drops people from the starting lineup. Rashford got dropped from the Wolves game for being 5 minutes late.
Yeah.
Garnacho was excluded from the training ground, from the match day squads early last season, and then it transpired and came out because he had a few attitude problems in training. So, of course, there's levels to these things. So my point of view is this. I get what you're saying, but we can't be conflating things that we don't know whether they exist or not. There's reasons sometimes where you don't drop people in games. Like you just said, Sancho, you'd like to see Sancho given 10, 5, 6, 7 games where he's going to get a run. But that would mean if you promise someone 5, 6, 7 games without being dropped, that means regardless of their performance, they've got to keep playing. So,
okay. No, I get that.
So that's why I'm saying to you, I get where you're coming from. I'm just trying to ascertain what you think's happened. It sounds to me like you think.
No, what I'm saying is, when you're mentioning Rashford turning up 5 minutes late, that was against Watford, and he was sat on the bench, came off and scored, didn't he? Yeah. So he wasn't banished from the squad. So if it's a lateness issue, is there a certain amount of minutes you have to be late? Because if you're late, you're late.
But maybe there are. But again,
if you're late for a train tomorrow by 1 minute, or you're late by an hour and 1 minute, you still missed the train, innit?
I agree. Okay, so if you're late 5 minutes, half an hour, whatever it may be, you get benched. But what if it's this is the what if thing. We can go down a rabbit hole here. What if it's the 10th time he's been late now?
Well, yeah, I understand. But what we're saying is if. We're saying what ifs. It's all what ifs. Give me factual information and then we have an opinion on it. Until now, it's no factual information displayed apart from he said.
Yeah. And I totally
it's the same with the Greenwood issue. He said, she said. Yeah. And the issue, he said, we don't know the information until there's more put out. We know what we're seeing now. And opinions change based on new evidence.
Yeah, so I totally understand. And to some of the comments, and Terry, how do you know this? I'm not saying I know it. I quite clearly and quite calmly and quite concisely stated, I'll give you an example of why things could be different. And this is the point I'm making. For me, though, what I'm looking at in this circumstance is this. You're right. Sancho could just be unhappy that he's been promised something and not delivered. And if that turns out to be the case, I'll condemn my manager for that and say that was wrong. That's a poor action. The bigger picture of the manager's lying here, though, whether it's lying to the player about game time and not giving it to him or lying about his training habits in public, is that he's going to lose the dressing room if he does that. And he'll lose the dressing room if he's lying about his players the same way Jose did. Because when you out players publicly and it's not the truth, or you misrepresent, the worst thing Jose did wasn't talking about Luke Shaw's inability to think himself or that Pogba's good for a month and that's it. The thing he did that lost the dressing room completely was attack Martial for being at his child's birth. It set the dressing room off like, hang on a minute, he's at his child's birth. How dare you moan about that in public? Even privately moaning about it would be unacceptable, but in public, screw you. You know, it's not like he's a doctor out there saving lives and you need him to save lives and he's gone off for 2 weeks on a jolly. This is the man that went to see the birth of his kid. So for me, I will condemn Ten Hag's actions and be very worried about them if he's lying. However, my gut feeling on the situation, just like your opinion is, I don't see the mileage in the manager lying about why he wasn't in the team and making the lie a negative. If he isn't in the team because he doesn't think he's good enough, then you say, look, he had a cold or he had an injury or whatever else it may be. Having said that, I have seen managers before say the player was out injured and then players tweet, go, I'm not injured, or their wives say it or whatever. So even those white lies can sometimes come back to haunt you. For me, I don't get why Ten Hag would lie about this publicly, because all he's going to do if he's lying is lose that dressing room, and that's it. His time at Man United's up. So for me,
not necessarily. There's a 2-week international break now. Yeah, and like I said, you'll have all the spin doctors at your football club waffling along about, in January, Man United have got a war chest. Yeah, and this and this and this. And by the time he comes back away, even if you're non-international duty, but by the time you get back to your next Premier League game, which is Brighton away, I think.
What's that got to do with? What's that got to, no, but the players. What the players are not going to listen to the Sun newspaper because they say there's a war chest. How is it going to?
Okay, let me ask you this then. Do you think Rashford, who's on 300-400 grand, whatever he's on every week, is the new poster boy of Man United? Right? Do you genuinely think that he's going to kick off and scream and shout because his mate, who is his mate, has been treated harshly? Yes. Yeah, no, he ain't. He's there, and he's not going to say nothing because he's getting his wages.
But
I can see how it can go down that path. Definitely.
Lee, but tell you why I think it will go down that path is because it's happened repeatedly at Manchester United over the past decade. So I'm here. We all as football fans, 80% of what we do is guess, and it's hypotheticals, and I think this and I think that because we're not involved. But this happened to Jose, and it happened to Ollie. Ollie went for a period where a lot of the players, they were losing faith in him, and the start of that, it kind of come to a head at the end of the season where we lost to Villarreal. There was fractions in the dressing room because Ollie had promised, and the board had promised certain players they would be sent out on loan, and they didn't, and then they were stuck in the under 21s and in the stands and not being registered, and it was creating problems in the dressing room because promises weren't being relayed. We've seen before people turning on Jose. Now, it may not have been them that were the ones being slagged off, but they look at it and go, hang on a minute, he's throwing them under the bus, or he's making up bullshit about them in the press. I could be next. So for me, I think the manager is, if he's lying, as you're suggesting that he could be, I think that's the worst thing he can do, and I just don't see why he would do that. I don't feel like the situation is the same as.
Question then.
Go on,
because somebody put it in the chat, and that's just reminded me. So when Casemiro was asked who's the best in training, he said Sancho. Is Casemiro potentially lying then? Yes, he is. He's potentially lying, isn't he?
So when he's saying, let me answer the question, Lee. Let me answer the question. So when he says best in training, did he say technically the best in training or the hardest worker?
Irrelevant. Who's the best?
No, it isn't irrelevant because, again, it isn't irrelevant. I'll tell you why it's not irrelevant. Because you can be the best footballer in training, but if you're turning up late, or you're not doing the sprint training properly or the running element properly, and you're not other areas aren't the best. So this is the point. You're 1 minute you're saying we don't know everything, and the next minute
he openly admitted he hated training. Yeah, put him on the pitch on the weekend. He delivered.
But okay, great point. Tell me when Sancho's been playing like Eden Hazard for Man United.
Tell me when he's played 38 games in a season. Dortmund.
Well, hang on, but he started the first 9 games last season, and a minute ago, he started 12 of the last 16 games last year. What are you talking about?
He was injured, and then this season he started how many? How many games he started this season?
Let me ask you this question. Let me ask Lee. Let me ask you this question. Hang on a minute. Let me ask you this question, Lee. Why, and Antony being out injured, how did that stop Sancho from delivering like Hazard, as per your example?
You said his output, and I don't like stats, but his output was 4 goals, 2 assists. Yeah, in you said 16 games towards the end of the season when Antony was out? Yeah, so that's 1 in 4. Mm-hmm. What's Antony's record? Because it ain't 1 in 4.
So my question to you was
better output on the pitch.
That wasn't my question. My question was, why didn't he perform like Eden Hazard in those last 16 games?
Because he ain't as good as Eden Hazard, Terry. But he's better than Antony, and he's got a better output than Antony when he has games.
Again, you said earlier, but this is the thing, Lee. You said earlier in this circumstance, you were like, I could basically get away with doing whatever I did at work because I was one of the top performers. You then give an example of Hazard not being a good trainer, but he was one of the best performers in the world while he was at Chelsea. So I agree with you. I, to a degree, wouldn't care what Sancho was doing in training if he was delivering for us like Eden Hazard was for Chelsea, but he isn't. And the reason he's not delivering for us is nothing to do with Antony. It's to do with his own application. And you say this all the time. He's got to be responsible for himself. Blaming Antony for him not performing is ridiculous.
Hold on. When he's put in the team and outperforms Antony's goals and assists output, which wins you football matches, right? Not that I'm big on stats, yeah? But if he's outperforming Antony, which you've just said he has, then there's no good reason for him not to get a goal this season. How many starts has he had this season? While you're Googling Antony's output last season.
No, because I'm just going to check. I'm just because again, it's not
Googling. So you're
about Googling it. It's about looking for clarity. So we have 4 games and he hasn't started any of them. And I'd like to see him get a start, but we're only 4 games in. and let's see what happens for me. But
and Antony started all 4, right?
yes.
And after the back of the end of last season, you've just said that Antony was out injured. Obviously, he couldn't perform if he's out injured. Sancho come in, delivered 4 goals, 2 assists. He's coming to a fresh season, pre-season. Yeah, was up front, playing well, false 9, all of that. Looked good in pre-season, and then he started exactly 0 games. There you go. There's the issue, in my opinion.
Again, and I understand, but so what do you think that? But what you're not answering is what do you think the issue is in terms of the manager not picking him? Why isn't he picking him? Because the manager's saying
2 reasons.
The manager's saying, hang on, let me finish my question. The manager is saying it's because he's training and his behavior in training isn't up to scratch. What do you think the reason is?
I personally think the reason is, firstly, he signed Antony twice at 2 different clubs. Right, so he's always going to favour a player that he's signed twice over a player that he inherited, right? And secondly, yeah, I just think that he's probably just had enough because he had 3 months off, yeah, and thought, you know what, bollocks to him. I'll go with Antony. Antony's more reliable, in my opinion, as Ten Hag because I've signed him twice, yeah, and that's it. I don't think it's got anything to do with training. Tell you, the amount of decent footballers, Ronaldinho didn't want to train. Like, come on. There's been played low. David Ginola didn't like training. Yeah, they might not have turned up late or whatever. Who cares? Yeah, at the end of the day, if you're no good in training, well, you ain't playing the game in training. You're playing the game on the weekend. Yeah, and if you go and do it, and then when you get given an opportunity to go and do it towards the back end of last season, you get given an opportunity to come into pre-season, and you get given that chance, and then you get nothing for the first 4 games. But then you see the guy who you've outperformed at the back end of last season still not performing, you're going to kick off. I reckon they've had a big tear up over it. That's my opinion.
Oh, and that's fair enough. And I'm glad. All I wanted to do was get out of you a straight answer.
Well, you did. I told you this half an hour ago, but you got your
No, you didn't. Because what I asked you 3 times was why do you think the manager's lying? And then you went into, you said why he was lying, and then I tried to understand why you think the manager isn't picking.
Let's whether he starts games for you because keep playing Antony, mate. I couldn't.
No, I understand where you're coming from. And I've said it before. I wouldn't even mind Antony getting these opportunities. Sancho. Hang on, let me just finish. Like, I sort of look at it from this point of view where I think to myself, I still disagree with you. There could have been a bust up. That bit I don't disagree with, but I think there's issues here with Sancho that we've seen persist at other clubs and into this team because I just don't think the manager. I just don't believe in this favoritism thing that happens in football. I don't believe it exists. I believe that when you've got players that are underperforming,
exists in football.
Yes. So let me explain my point, because what you do is you stop listening when you talk. I think it's overstated. When the only time we bring it up is when a player we don't like plays more than a player that we do like, and then we don't look at any of the other underlying factors that could create.
I don't like either of them. I couldn't care less.
But again, fair enough. But there we go. Listen, people, we're going to move on. I've got some super chats here. The first one says, Sancho is trash, lads. No if, buts, or maybes. He's trash. And like I said, none of this negates the fact that he's never delivered in a Man United shirt.
I've said he's been trash since he's got to England. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I actually predicted that he'd flop when you signed him. Yeah. But at the same time, his output last season off of the stats that we've gone through is better than the player that he can't get a game over.
Yeah, but that isn't the questions that I said. I didn't say his stats better than him. He had opportunities last year to perform, and I don't think he has. You're also stating that Ronaldinho and Hazard, they didn't train hard. You can't be comparing Sancho to these guys.
No, I'm not comparing the player. I'm comparing.
But then you can't use them as an example. It's a false equivalence. So you don't think players like Sancho have to work hard in training because he's technically brilliant?
Didn't say that. You're trying to twist it.
And what are you saying? Then what are you saying? Then
what I'm saying is if Antony's running his nuts off in training, and Sancho is more talented than him, but doesn't have to run as much as him, yeah, because he's got more talent. But who's going to win you the football match, Antony or Sancho? You play Sancho.
So tell me about Sancho's talent since he's been in England that's been winning Man United games.
Well, tell me about Antony's.
There isn't, and that isn't the argument for me. No, that isn't. There we go. You're missing the point. This is the thing that you're missing here. Neither have delivered on an outputs point of view. I agree. but the one who works hard, turns up, gives his all, keeps the shape, tracks back, is starting. I don't want either of them to. It's a micro penis competition. But you're now defending and stating, you have said this on this stream, that it doesn't need to train because because Eden Hazard didn't train, nor does Jadon Sancho, because he's better technically than Antony. Mad. Let's have a little look here at some more of these comments that have come through. Time to change the segment to straight facts to Waffle House with Lee. Last season, Sancho got subbed off twice before the end of the second half because performance problems. Absolutely true. Everyone forgets that suddenly.
But Maguire didn't. Okay, cool.
Maguire only started 7 games last year. What are you talking about?
Doesn't matter. Did he get subbed off in any of them?
What relevance is that to do with anything?
Did he get subbed off in any of them?
I don't remember off the top of my head, but let me ask you a question. What's that got to do with Sancho being dragged off for bad performances?
We all know he's had bad performances. Harry Maguire's had bad performances.
I hear what you're saying, but would you also agree that forwards get taken off more regularly than defenders with subs, generally speaking?
Yeah, of course they do, but at the same time, go on, carry on, because I ain't got much long left. I've got about 15
Pogba, Ronaldo, Greenwood, Sancho, Antony. Problems just keep coming. As an Arsenal fan, I think it's time to officially hand over the Banter Trophy. Thank you, bro. Terry likes to listen to himself talk. I'm 100% sure this guy is a top gooner. Terry thinks he's Bamba Gascoigne. Big up, lads. I don't really know what that means, but thank you. Because the manager is crap, that's why he's lying. Maybe.
Maybe he wants to leave. Maybe he's trying to get sacked.
Yeah. I hope he is telling the truth, though, Lee, because then you're going to have to applaud him, aren't you?
Well, if he is telling the truth, yeah. But when the new information that will probably never happen to come out until that day, yeah.
Because we never really know the truth. Therefore, we should just ignore fucking press conferences. Terry, okay, I have a question. Do you think Sancho should go to Saudi? If he wants to leave and doesn't want to be part of Man United, yes, because you don't want a player in your club that doesn't want to be there. What is this nonsense obsession with training? A lot of good footballers are bad trainers. Havertz, Lineker. Again, you're naming greats. Again, are we comparing Sancho to them? That's what I need to ask you, bro.
No, because you're taking that way out of context. What you're saying is good players in training, don't necessarily like training. He's named some really good players, some fantastic players from back in the day, but you're comparing the name of Sancho to the names of these people. No, he's comparing training and training of certain names. That's it. I don't know how you're missing that.
So, but my point is this. These guys got away with being bad trainers because they delivered for their teams. You're agreeing with me that Sancho doesn't deliver for the team. So is he allowed to also... So if someone's a bad trainer and a bad performer, you're okay with that?
Yeah, but he's a better performer than what you've got in that position.
He really isn't.
If I had to pick a player right now,
he's a mid-off.
Listen, I knew he'd flop anyway when he got here, right? But if I had to pick a player to come in to back up to Saka, to be a backup number 2 to Saka, I'm taking Sancho over Antony all day, every day, and twice on Sunday.
And that's fair. But listen, I get where you're coming from, but again, neither are top performers. I don't want either in the first team.
The whole team's not performing.
I understand that, but the way people like the Sancho should play because Antony's bad, they've both been terrible. It's not an argument, in my opinion, that holds any value. And comparing it to these players who are all absolute ballers is
Let me give you a very quick scenario. Yeah, right. Mason Mount has underperformed since he's got to Man United. Right, Eriksen comes into the team because he got injured. Mount, do you think? Off of the back of his performance against Arsenal, because I thought Eriksen played all right. Yeah, he set up Rashford's goal. Yeah, I thought he actually done pretty well. Do you think if Mason Mount is fit and available for the next game against Brighton, I don't know how long he's out for, maybe he's not.
He won't be back for that game, I don't think.
Okay, but the very next game that he is fit and available for, and Eriksen's producing and you get a win against Brighton, Eriksen maybe chips in with another goal or maybe an assist. Do you think Eriksen, who is probably one of the hardest workers in training, I'd imagine, do you think that he's getting straight back in that team as soon as Mason Mount's fit? Because I don't. Well, we'll see when it happens.
We'll see. We also have to look at Amrabat's inclusion now. He's been given the number 4. That tells you he's going to be a big part of the first team.
Is he a good trainer? We don't know. He's not had a session yet.
in terms of last season, by the way, Sancho 7 goals, 3 assists, Antony 10 and 5. So in terms of numbers last year, Antony did outperform him.
In terms of minutes, he outperformed him as well.
Yeah, last season, Antony did. Sorry, Sancho had 3. Yeah, he had a few more minutes than him. He had
A few.
About 900 more minutes than him. Because there's some.
Sorry, so that's 10 whole games then, Terry.
Yeah, because that includes. But you've got to remember that was including EFL, and everything else. But he was delivering in those. Listen, he scored a few goals in that comp. So I'm just saying. But look, I understand where you're coming from, but I don't think you can
scored a few goals in the EFL.
Them great.
What, Sancho? Sancho scored in the EFL that you won.
Sorry.
Did you say Sancho had some goals in the EFL Cup?
No, Antony did.
Cup. Antony, cool. Yes. So he helped you win the cup.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you. No worries. That's all I wanted to know. I thought you meant Sancho, but no drama. Go on, carry on.
No, Antony did, yeah. This is the reason he didn't score in the final. He scored in. I wonder if that was a quarterfinal he scored in. This is the reason for Kai Havertz. Okay, we'll come back to that one in a minute. Billionaire ego. 250 to 300 is achievable. Thank you very much. But judging them solely on training is stupid. If those players I mentioned never got a chance because of training, we would never have heard of their greatness. But Sancho, again, it's not a fact. Because Sancho fucking started about how many games last year? He started the first 9 games.
Less than Antony and scored 3 goals less.
Oh my God. I'm actually losing it again. That's irrelevant.
Well, it's not.
Right. Hang on. No, let me explain why it is. Let me explain. Please don't interject. Yes, if all those bad trainers never got a chance to ever start a game, we never would have heard of them. You're right. But they did start games and they delivered. But do you know if Lineker, let me ask you a question. Would you have ever heard of Gary Lineker, Ronaldinho, Zidane, all these, especially the foreign players that weren't playing here? Would you have heard of any of them if they didn't deliver on the football pitch?
Well, no, of course, but they wouldn't have got the opportunity based on not training right.
But Antony's had opportunities. He's had opportunities. And Sancho, what are you talking about?
Okay, carry on.
What? Yes or no? Has Sancho had opportunity to perform for Man United?
Yeah, and he scored 3 goals less than a guy who played 10 more games than him. He had 3 months off and still scored 3 goals less.
That isn't the argument.
No, and hold on. You're saying that he's not performed. Neither of them have really hit the heights, have they? Let's be real with it.
Why are we fighting about them?
I'm not fighting. I'm just giving you factual information, and you're trying to spin it here, there, and everywhere.
I'm not spinning anything. That isn't the argument. The argument is about one working
there is
hard.
No argument. One not. I'm right. And he's played 10 games less than Antony, and he performed with 3 goals less than Antony.
That isn't the argument. The argument is you're defending him for not training well because Ronaldinho didn't. That's mad. Let's keep going here. What's Sancho's incentive if Ten Hag tells the truth? I don't know what you mean by that. You need to expand on that, my friend. I don't understand what you mean. Most fans just support Sancho because he's from South London and a road. That's stupid. That's not what it is at all. Rivals are definitely backing him on it. Lee, expectations don't make the rules. Sancho is bad, is what the ugly hood rat says here.
He's been crap for 3 years or 2 years or whatever it is.
Yeah.